Here comes the sun. Okay, so the sun has gone away, which means I'm relying on artificial light here, but knowing my luck, halfway through the sun will come back out and this will all be very much overexposed, but we'll see how we go. I am talking to you today about Izia La Nuit, which is this one here by Sisley. And I can say that it's not really a love at first sniff for me, this one, but I do really like it. And I think there is something, here comes the sun. I think there's something really interesting about this fragrance, and I haven't quite figured out what it is yet. Well, actually, I have kind of figured out what it is, but I don't know why it's doing it. So I just wanted to talk about it, I guess. And if you aren't in the whole niche world or don't want to delve too far into the niche world and you're still very much interested in designer fragrances, but you want something a little bit different to everything else that's on the market in terms of designer, then this is a little bit different, I think, even though there are elements that have similarities to other things. So effectively, this is a fruity rose fragrance that has some darker elements to give it that whole noirish feel, but it isn't super dark and it's not super heavy. So I'm just going to spray it on my right hand because I've already had it sprayed on my left. So basically, when I first spray this on my skin, I remember when I first opened the bottle and I sprayed it on, I just went straight for the skin. I didn't even try the paper. And I remember thinking, I wasn't really that enamored with it. So the immediate thing that I get is blackcurrant. It's very dark purpley kind of fruit, blackish, I guess. It's got that sharp greenness to it as well, that dark sharp greenness to it, like the blackcurrant is still on the vine or you've just snapped it off the vine. There's meant to be citruses in here too, and I do get that. It kind of adds, there is a really bitter mandarin note in here as well, which sort of smells like the pith of the mandarin. And I think there's meant to be cardamom in the top as well, but I don't know if I really get the cardamom so much as I do the blackcurrant and that mandarin note. So the opening was not something that I necessarily loved because I'm starting to learn that though I enjoy citrusy notes, I find mandarin notes, for some reason, even though I love the smell of mandarin when I'm eating the fruit, I don't necessarily really love it in a fragrance per se. After about 10 or 15 minutes, I find I get much more of the rose coming through. So there is a beautiful rose note in here. It's quite dark, it's quite soft, but it's definitely present. You can really notice it. And that's when it's sort of, the fruit starts to fade away, although that blackcurrant note still seems to stay quite substantially, even in the mid. But that rose really starts to come through and compete with that blackcurrant. And well, not compete. I mean, they're just walking along the path side by side. And it actually works pretty well. And the blackcurrant almost makes that rose feel sort of, because of the juiciness of the fruit note of that blackcurrant, it kind of makes that rose feel kind of wet and damp and dark at the same time. And that's kind of how it stays for me for quite some time. I also get quite a bit of the patchouli at this point as well, sort of in the half-hour mark. And I really like it. I don't think it's super groundbreaking in terms of being the most unique rose, dark rose fragrance I've ever smelled. But there is an interesting element to this fragrance, and that is when you're sort of in that opening to the mid, it's sort of building up as though it's going to become this really deep, dark, heavy kind of fragrance. And it definitely has that nighttime feel to it. But as it dries down further on, sort of beyond the couple of hours mark, what I notice is that it actually becomes a lot drier. That juicy, wet fruitiness that I experienced in the opening and the mid starts to really die away, and you're left with effectively a lot of the rose and the patchouli, and I think there's labdanum in here as well. I'm not sure I get a huge amount of the labdanum, but it becomes very dry and almost grassy in the dry down, and almost like dried rose petals amongst a bed of vetiver or something. And there's no vetiver listed for this fragrance, but I feel like there must be, or maybe it's just the patchouli that's doing this. And so this beautiful dryness is kind of green. It's like dried rose petals and woody greenness. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of the sheep fragrances that I've been loving so much lately. And so it feels familiar to me. And I think that's when I first tried this, I was thinking, I was a little bit disappointed because I don't know why, but I was expecting it to feel a lot more different and a lot more unique. And it is unique. And for a designer fragrance, it's unique. But the reason I think it has that familiarity to me is because of this dry down, effectively. There's no oak moss in here, I don't think, and it doesn't smell particularly mossy, but it just has this beautiful dryness in the dry down with that rose note. And there's other florals in here too, freesia and magnolia. I feel like whenever I've had fragrances that have freesia in it, there is that element of lightness that freesia brings to the fragrance, and that floral note is almost kind of dry and airy. So I suppose that's what contributes to this. But primarily I get rose, patchouli in the dry down, and obviously those fruits in the opening. So it is a really interesting fragrance. I don't know if I love it, but I'm enjoying it, and I enjoy the journey that it takes me on because, again, like I said, when you're in that opening to the mid phase, it feels like it's going to be this really big, deep, dark, wet, heavy kind of fragrance that it's going to develop into. But then suddenly that wetness goes away and that denseness goes away, and it becomes this really beautiful, easy wearing, light, dry rose patchouli fragrance. So it's interesting, and it takes a turn that is unexpected, and that's what I really enjoy about this fragrance. And I like the bottle. And just on that, the bottle is actually designed by a Polish sculptor named Bronislaw Krzysztof. I hope I've said that right. And the nose behind this fragrance is Amandine Marie. She was responsible for the first Izia as well. She is a master perfumer. She is responsible for many well-known fragrances, including Chloé Eau de Parfum, Kenzo Flower, one of the Kenzo Flower flankers. She's also done La Nuit Trésor by Lancôme, and she's worked on a couple of Javoy fragrances as well. The list of her credentials is very, very long, and I think this is worthwhile getting your nose on if you like any of her other work. I like some of the things. I know I'm not a fan of La Nuit Trésor, which I've already talked about previously, but I do really enjoy this one. As I said, I'm not sure I love it, but it's kind of growing on me because it's a little bit unexpected. So that was my little mini review of Izia La Nuit by Sisley. And again, I really love the bottle, love the presentation. And I think I'm going to hold on to it. I think it's growing on me, and it's definitely a sort of nighttime / winter kind of fragrance, even though it's not super heavy. It's perfect for autumn. I'm wearing it today, and it's a beautiful sunny autumn day, but it's a little bit cool, and it's just perfect for that. So yeah, I really like it. Definitely worth checking out. But do recommend trying to get a sample first rather than blind buying it like I did. So thank you very much for joining me. As always, please give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and you found it useful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
We were young and we were free and running, never bothered about what could be coming. Every day we danced and life was smiling. We were young and drunk in love.